Today, our government is making our choice.
Welcome back to Moose on the Loose. My name's David. Today, Chrystia Freeland is dropping the budget as we speak. We're going to jump over to this. Big announcements here. The main thing we want to know is how are they going to pay for all these billions of dollars of spending? They've already announced $40 billion before the budget drops here. How are they going to pay for it? Is it increasing taxes on all of us? They say it's not going to touch the middle class. Then again, we all know the middle class is basically gone in Canada. There is no middle class. There's people struggling to get by, people who are lucky enough to get in the housing market before things went nuclear, and there's people living in tents. As I mentioned in my prediction earlier, I said it's coming from the capital gains. They're going to increase capital gains. That's what I think. Some people say they're going to be putting potentially capital gains on principal residents. Let's jump into this.
The job of our tax system is to lean against this structural inequality, to fund investments in the middle class, especially in young Canadians, by asking those who are benefiting from the winner-takes-all economy to pay a little bit more.
Spit it out, Freeland.
Today, our tax system doesn't do that. Today, it is possible for a nurse or a carpenter to pay tax at a higher marginal rate than a multi-millionaire. That's not fair. That must change, and it will.
Look at Trudeau there, so smug.
Our government is raising the inclusion rate to 2/3 on annual capital gains above $250,000 for individuals. This new revenue will help make life cost less for millions of Canadians, particularly millennials and Gen Z. It will help fund our efforts to turbocharge the building of more homes. It will support investments in growth and productivity that will pay dividends for years to come. So, who will pay more? Well, Mr. Speaker, most Canadians have no capital gains in a typical year, so they won't pay more. The first $250,000 in capital gains every single year enjoyed by each individual Canadian will be taxed at the current rate. Individual Canadians enjoying this substantial annual gain won't pay a penny more. The lifetime capital gains exemption, an amount fully exempt from taxation, will be raised to $1.25 million. And this change will not, of course, apply to the sale of Canadians' principal residence, which is and will remain.
So they're not touching principal residence.
From the tax on capital.
They knew that's a death sentence if they did.
Only 0.13% of Canadians with an average annual income of $1.4 million will pay more on their capital gains. For 99.87% of Canadians, personal income taxes on capital gains will not increase. Taxing capital gains is not an inherently partisan idea. It is an idea that everyone who cares about fairness should support. In fact, the idea of taxing capital gains in Canada was first broached by the government of Prime Minister John Diefenbaker and his Royal Commission on Taxation, chaired by Kenneth Carter. And Prime Minister Brian Mulroney raised the capital gains inclusion rate to 75%, higher than the rate we're establishing today. Yet, I know, there will be many voices raised in protest. No one likes paying more tax, even, or perhaps particularly, those who can afford it the most. But before they complain too bitterly, I'd like to ask Canada's 1%, Canada's 0.1%, to consider this. What kind of country do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a country where you can tell the size of someone's paycheck by their smile? Do you want to live in a country where kids go to school hungry? Do you want to live in a country where a teenage girl gets pregnant because she doesn't have the money to buy birth control? Do you want to live in a country where the only young Canadians who can buy their own homes are those with parents who can help with the down payment? Do you want to live in a country where we make the investments we need in healthcare, in housing, in old age pensions, but we lack the political will to pay for them and choose instead to pass a ballooning debt on to our children? Do you want to live in a country where those at the very top live lives of luxury, but must do so in gated communities behind ever higher fences, using private health care and private planes because the public sphere is so degraded and the wrath of the vast majority of their less privileged compatriots burns so hot? Every one of us here in this chamber today, and every Canadian across our truly great country, needs to ask themselves these same questions, because the stakes could not be higher. Democracy is not inevitable. It has succeeded and succeeds because it has delivered a good life for the middle class. When liberal democracy fails to deliver on that most fundamental social contract, we should not be surprised if the middle class loses faith in democracy itself. Tax policy is not only, or chiefly,
Come on,
the
Freeland.
province of accountants or economists. It belongs to all of us, because it is how we decide what kind of a country we want to live in and what kind of a country we want to build. Today, our government is making our choice.
This is word salad, Freeland.
C'est le chemin que nous...
Okay, so that's enough of that. I've been doing the math here off on the side of the screen here while she was blabbering. So I found this website here right on the Government Canada's website. They just released this. I was doing the math and I found this, so it breaks it down. So let me just break down for you guys exactly what is going on here, because what she is saying here is trying to make it sound like it's for the middle class. This is actually a tax on all businesses basically, and the middle class that is doing well as the super wealthy. I don't think this is good for Canada. I'm not an economist, but just looking at it, I don't think this is good. It's going to bring in a lot of money, but I think it's going to tank the private sector that's already hurting bad. So what she's basically saying is your principal residence, you sell that, no capital gains is what it's currently at. You don't have to pay capital gains if you sell your own house, and that will stay the same. But if you have a second house and you sell that, there's 50% capital gains currently on, so say, let's do an example here. Say if you bought a house for a real Canadian example, say if you bought a house for $500,000 and now because of it going nuclear, now it's worth $2 million. So there's $1.5 million of capital gains. And you would basically pay 50% capital gains on the first 250,000, and you would be paying, they keep saying 2/3. It's 66.6667 whatever percent. 67% capital gains on 1.25 million. Let's just do the math here real quick on this. So you would be paying, we'll just compare it. So say if you're paying what would we say, $500,000 and your capital gains is 1.5 million. So that's how much money you have to pay capital gains on. Now if you had to pay 50%, it'd be hard to do because it's based on your income. Let's just say times 0.5, you'd be paying tax on $750,000, just for simplicity's sake, because you would be your whole rate would be based on the tax brackets and the money going through the tax brackets. Let's just say 30%, just as a simple example here. So we multiply this 750 times 0.3, you'd be paying $225,000 in taxes. 225, remember that number. So we got 1.5 million. That is the amount that you have to pay tax on. you'd be paying 50% capital gains on the 250,000. We'll do that afterwards. And then you have 66.7, 2/3. Multiply this by 667. So 833, multiply that by 0.3. We're going to use the same 30%. 250,000. The other one was 225, so already more tax, but we haven't added in the capital gains from the first 250. So we go 250,000, multiply that by 0.3. So yeah, we'd be adding 75 plus the 250. Where's that number here? 125. So you'd be paying, this is the difference they're making here. So instead of paying, what was the original one? $225,000 in capital gains. Now you'd be paying $325,000. Is that right? Normally I'd spend a while and do the math over 6 times, but since it's like a hot button thing that's just popped, I'll just send it out. If my math is wrong, by all means, someone correct it. But basically, point being, you're paying 50% capital gains on the first 250,000 right here, 250,000 per year, and then you're paying 66.7% capital gains on everything after that. And on top of this, so this is just the home sales of, say, a second or third or fourth home that you own. But if you're a business out, it even says right here, the inclusion rate will increase to 2/3 capital gains realized on all by corporations and trusts. Corporations now need to pay higher capital gains across the board. A lot of Canadians have their businesses incorporated, mine included. Just being on YouTube here, I incorporated what I do here 8 years ago as a way to protect myself. It's a long story. I was going through a nasty divorce, and it was the safest thing for me to do. But a lot of people, if you're posting content on YouTube and someone doesn't like it and they just want to absolutely destroy you, then if you have it in a corporation, it's a separate entity. So all they can do is literally wipe out your corporation. They can't come after you. They can't literally come and take my shirt. They can't come and steal my Canada flag. That's why I did that. And a lot of people do this. They set up a corporation to protect themselves as having a separate entity. It separates yourself. So like I'm sure there's a lot of butchers and bakers and candlestick makers who are all incorporated. Even though they're small businesses, they run it through a corporation. It's easier. It's also, you can pay yourself with dividends, which makes it a heck of a lot easier. If you're just doing the accounting yourself. I don't know. I don't think this is going to help businesses at all. It is going to raise a lot of money, but I think it's going to further hurt our economy. I'm really curious to see what like a full-blown economist has to say. There's them on here on YouTube, like the video I had on my second channel there, whatever it is, 4 or 5, 6 days ago, talking about increasing capital gains. Here we are. They did it. And my prediction was they're going to increase it to 70% or 80%. And there we are, 67%. So I was close. I was close. I was off by 3% there. So I didn't think they were going to touch the principal residence. Because that would be nail in the coffin for them. They know it too. But they know people with second, third, fourth houses, they're really dinging them because 250,000, most people have realized way more gains than 250,000, especially people who have bought houses well before 2015, right? A lot of people had houses. So if they sell them now, they're getting dinged on them. I can see the outrage right now is going to absolutely blowing up from this. We just look through here real quick, see what else they have on this page. Lowest marginal tax rate. I mean, the corporation system in Canada is why a bunch of corporations moved here. It's the reason why when I got out of my marriage and moved out here, I incorporated because it was the smartest thing to do financially. It's like there's an upfront cost of it was maybe $3,000 or $4,000, but then the amount of money you save on taxes is so much that I made it up in like the first 2 years easily, like maybe year and a half. And then from there, every year afterwards, you're just saving money. That's why a bunch of companies have their corporate head offices here, and lots of corporations base themselves out of Canada. And now they're taking that away. It's like Canada's already hurting. I don't think this is good, man. We'll just jump back here, see if she has anything else to say.
A conservative who actually got a pipeline built.
Look at Trudeau reading a magazine.
And you know what?
He doesn't even care what's going on.
That is because our government understands that to do big things in Canada, sometimes the government needs to lead the charge. Whether it is getting more homes built faster, or finally creating a national system of early learning and child.
Okay, we don't need to listen to this dog crap.
The ninth deficit after the Prime Minister promised the budget would balance itself. And what did he do with the money? Everything he spent on has become more expensive. He's doubled the rent, doubled mortgage payments, doubled the needed down payment for a home, forced 35 homeless encampments in Halifax alone. 1 in 4 kids cannot afford food. And now he's adding $40 billion of new debt and new spending. That's $2,400 of new inflation. That is why Conservatives will vote against this wasteful inflationary budget that is like a pyromaniac spraying gas on the inflationary fire that he lit. It is getting too hot and too expensive for Canadians, and that's why we need a carbon tax election to replace him with a common sense Conservative government.
But Trudeau's still reading his magazine.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have a point that I think it would be good to get the Leader of the Opposition to offer clarity on.
You got nothing.
We presented a clear choice to Canadians. We said to Canadians, we believe that we need the power of government to get things built for young Canadians, to get things built for the people of Alberta who needed the pipeline that we got built. And we presented a clear, fiscally responsible way to finance those essential investments, increasing the inclusion rate on capital gains. I think that it is high time for the opposition, which poses as being on the side of working people, to clarify its position today. Will the opposition join us in asking those at the very top to pay a little bit more to support Canadians? Or are they going to show their true colors and stand with the 0.1%? That's what Canadians want to know today, Mr. Speaker.
It's like the Dark Witch or Saruman asking them to join the dark side.
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, the Minister just tabled a budget which is central.
Okay, they're going into French here, so.
And in a 9th consecutive deficit, with the budget still not balancing itself. And everything on which the Prime Minister spends gets worse and more costly. He is spent, and Canadians are broke. The country is broken. We have a doubling of housing costs. We have 8,000 people joining a Facebook group to study how they can get a meal out of a garbage can after food prices have gone up faster than at any time in a generation because of the carbon tax he's imposing on our food, a carbon tax that with the help of the NDP, he plans to quadruple to 61 cents a litre. And today, did he learn anything from these catastrophic failures? No. He doubles down on the same failure with $40 billion of new deficits, $40 billion of new spending. That's to say $2,400 for every family in new debt and new inflationary spending. And now, for the first time in a generation, we're spending more on debt interest than on health care. That's money for bankers and bondholders rather than doctors and nurses.
Right.
And the great example of how wonderful government can be, given after a tremendous theatrical pause, was the government's purchase of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. What would have happened if the government had just gotten out of the way? Asked the finance minister. The answer is the thing would have got built with private money rather than $30 billion of taxpayer bailouts.
That's right.
In fact, a project the Prime Minister said would cost $5 billion is up to $30 billion. Wow. Mr. Speaker, that is 500% over budget. It is $2,000 in costs for every single Canadian family for a project the private sector was going to be building on its own, and the company that was going to build it bought out, taking the money to Texas, where they're building Texan pipelines with Canadian dollars. All of our X's are in Texas, Mr. Speaker. And then, to close it off, we got some of the most hair-raising ideological fervor from the minister, who says that what Canadians really need is a stronger government. Well, they have created a stronger government in order to make for weaker and more suffering people. This is not a government that gives people everything they want. It's a government that takes everything they have. But the good news, Mr. Speaker, is we want big Canadian citizens with a smaller and more efficient government, where the state is servant and not master, where our priorities are clear: to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. And as soon as the NDP takes away its support from this Prime Minister, we will have a carbon tax election where the people will be able to make that decision for themselves in a country where they can earn powerful paychecks that buy affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods. The country that we all knew and still love. A country based on the common sense of the common people, united for our common home. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home.
Something to note there, a quick little update on the dumpster diving network that he's mentioned here. It's actually up to 10.3 members now. 10,300, sorry. Because he keeps quoting the 8,000 when he had looked at it. I don't know, it was maybe a month or so ago. Yeah, we're up to 10,300 members. That group is just growing in Canada, which is so sad.
And I now move, seconded by the member for Forest Lawn, that the debate now be adjourned.
Okay. Mr. Polyev, seconded by Mr. Holland. Move.
Wow, so that whole time he was doing that, the Liberals emptied out. That's unreal. They got up and left while he was giving his speech? What is this? Is anyone else seeing this? They left while he was giving his speech? This should be illegal. That's like, I'm offended. I'm legitimately offended that Trudeau and all his croonies, aside from these three dudes, oh, this is gross. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less from Justin Trudeau. This just disgusting, vile beasts in our government. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about this this budget drop, the capital gains on corporations, the increasing it to 2/3 above 250,000, all that stuff. I'm appalled by them just leaving there. Anyways, be sure to subscribe here for more updates. I'll keep bringing you guys the honest, uncorrupt news here that you're not going to see on mainstream media. They're all funded by Trudeau and his cronies here. Be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching here. I greatly appreciate all of you, all the members coming in. Keep fighting for freedom. We'll keep fighting for our loved ones. I'll see you guys in the next one.